Gerald, is somebody behind me? I can't. I feel a little uneasy right now.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. We got a special treat for you this week. Gerald here with you, and on the other side is a dead, rotting corpse, my partner. Nicholas, how are you?
I seriously feel really uneasy. Like I feel like I.
No,
No?
trust me.
Okay.
You asked earlier. You're fine. There's nothing there.
Gerald,
Yes.
all I hear is just somebody singing "So Let the Sun Shine In."
Oh,
Gerald.
Oh wow, you're in trouble then.
Oh boy.
When that song's playing, run, brother.
Guys, I gotta go.
Oh man, you definitely should go. Guys, this week, now look, patrons get in on the action. Whenever there's not a new release that Nick and I are discussing, we spin the roulette wheel, which we spun it last week and it landed on the patrons, and we drew out Mr. Brett Parker's pick. Brett, we love you, brother. Thank you for being a supporter and a patron of the show. And he chose 2016's The Autopsy of Jane Doe, a film that Nick had never seen, but I saw when it came out, although I can't believe it's been like 7 years. But it's been that long, I rewatched it today on my phone.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have young kids, guys. I had to try to figure out how to watch it and not have them see a fully naked woman's body on an autopsy table. So I watched it on my phone. That's what we're going to be doing this week. But before we talk about the autopsy of Jane Doe and get into the review, we always start out every episode with what we call one big question.
You've got to ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
Number two, where is that music coming from?
Let the sun shine in, brother. Just let it happen. All right. Nick, what question did the fans throw that we're going to pick out this week, man?
Well, the one that I really liked the best, sorry, Julio, not your question about, is this the Flash of IFC movies?
Oh, God.
Brett from Dissect That Film wants
Hey.
to know, Gerald. Love you, Brett. What's your favorite film that takes place in one location? I've got the obvious one, and then I've got a dark horse. But I want to know your answer first.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is 12 Angry Men. Is that
12
what
Angry Men is the absolute obvious answer to this because it is a stone cold masterpiece.
All right, let me think then. Let me think. Go ahead. You said you had another one, right? So go ahead
my
and give
dark
yours.
horse is a little film called Carnage from like 10, 11 years ago. It basically takes place in an apartment. Kate Winslet's in it.
Carnage.
John C.
I don't know if I
Reilly's
know
in
that.
it.
Oh, I do know that. It's like there's a couple married couples or something.
Yeah, it's two married couples and like their
Yeah,
kids get into a fight at like the schoolyard or something like that, and then basically
Yeah.
they're just in this apartment like literally the whole time. It's really really great. I really
what you're talking
loved it based on the play. That's my dark horse. But yeah, the obvious answer to this is 12 Angry Men.
I thought of another one too while you were talking. 12 Angry Men is the top of the line. But how about 10 Cloverfield Lane? How about
Okay.
that one?
Okay.
Yeah, dude. In the bunker the whole
Yeah.
time, just like stress and anxiety. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman. I mean, creepy
You
shit.
thought of that just
So
because of Mary Elizabeth Winstead, didn't you?
I think about her every 15 minutes, so it's possible. that may be why. You're right. But yeah, I
Knew
think
it.
12 Angry Men is like the Mount Rushmore, like number one spots, you know. But
Legit.
yeah,
I mean, I
there's a lot
think
of good
that's
ones.
what anybody thinks of when they think of
Yeah.
single location films. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
stone cold masterpiece. Such a good
I
movie.
agree. Well, Brett not only picked the movie this week, he also picked one big question for
There
us.
you
Brett, this is
go!
your episode,
There
brother.
you go, baby.
Let's get into the review for The Autopsy of Jane Doe, directed by Andre Orvidal. I probably fucked that up.
I told
hope
you
I did
before
okay.
we recorded Uvradal.
Uvidal.
You just
Andre,
you
let me run that
pronounced
again.
it worse. You pronounced it worse that time than you were doing it pre-show.
You know what? I'm not going to run it again. Print it. I mispronounced it. I'll probably do it a couple more times, so I'll just leave it in. It stars Emil Hirsch and Brian Cox and a few others, but kind of like what we alluded to, it really takes place in one location and has very few characters in the movie, which I actually think kind of helped the film a little bit. But we'll get into that when we discuss it. However, we always give our score for any review up top out of 10. We have not discussed it with each other, and it's a segment we call the early score reveal, Nick.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm gonna score and then I never score. It's not fair.
Okay, this music is driving me crazy.
All right, let the sun shine in, buddy, or whatever your score is going to reflect.
Feel my wrists are starting to get sore too. I don't.
Hey, your brain is alive and well. I'll tell you that much. I don't care how long you've been in that state. All right, here we go. You want to count us in, or you want me to do it? What do you want to do?
I'll let you
All
do
right,
it.
All right, here we go. I actually kind of struggle with this score a little bit. I'll explain that here in a second. But here we go. Our scores out of 10, guys. 3, 2, 1. Look at this.
No, we already did Poor Things, Gerald.
Look at this. 7 out of 10 for me. Well, let's tell them.
How
and
did
then I'll
I
explain
rate
that.
a horror film higher than you? This is
7 out of 10
all over again.
7 out of 10 here and an 8 out of 10 from Nick. Now, it was really close to being an 8 from me. What's so funny, guys, is we just did a patron review for Poor Things, and we had to use the same prop because
Not
we had a 7
enough.
and an 8 on that one, too.
Let me guess. Not enough dumb
No,
garbage slasher
right.
murder killings and stupid
no.
nonsense.
This is a really, really good film.
That you
let's get
rated
general
a
thoughts.
7?
Do you want to do well, 7's a good score, isn't it? I mean, that's a good score.
Sevens, I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot. If it's an 8, I loved it. But I liked it a lot. A 7 out of 10. Do you want to do spoilers, just whatever, or do you want to do a quick
It came out
general?
like 8 years ago. I mean, I don't know how many people
All
have
right, so
necessarily seen it.
We'll just talk about the movie. This will just be our review, guys. If you have not seen the autopsy of Jane Doe and you're interested in that, then do not listen to this review because we will most likely get into spoilers as we begin our discussion. So come back after you see the movie. This will be a spoiler-filled review this week.
It's on Hulu if you're in the States. I don't know where it's
It
streaming
is.
internationally, but that's why I watched it as Hulu.
It's on Hulu. It's also on Shudder for any horror fans out there.
It's also on Tubi, Brad.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure because I looked up a list of where I could find it.
All right. Let me
and
take
I saw it was on.
off.
It was on Tubi.
Hang on. Hang on. 7's too high. Then hang on. I can't do Tubi. Tubi will be upset that I
could have done a double
movies
feature of this and Postocalypse, but
Yeah, you should have. All right. Well, let me explain myself then, Nick, to get the discussion started, okay? Because you're right. I'm absolutely shocked that you gave a horror movie a higher score than me. But I'm glad you did, though. This movie loses me a little bit in the last act. In the last, 15 to 20 minutes. It kind of feels like... Okay, so for the first 75% of this movie, there was a wonderful blend of ambiance, atmosphere, creepy imagery, just kind of not really knowing what was lurking in the shadows, and these weird sounds and the fucking jingle bell that they kept using, which I loved. A lot of really, really minimalistic, simplistic, horrific imagery, okay? And that happened for the majority of the film, which is why I love this movie so much. But then when we get to the last 20 minutes and stuff starts to kind of come out and be revealed to us, and the story kind of the bows start to get tied together on top of the package, it was a little too convenient, and it was the best way I could put it was kind of underwhelming. It didn't feel like this movie that I had been watching should have a Salem witchcraft trial tie-in. It just felt weird to me. I'm not saying I hated it because I didn't. I mean, a 7's a good score, but it was just a strange way to end it. It wasn't the ending that I thought we were kind of leading up to. So that's the only ding that I give the movie. But I mean, I know you and Brad did The Last Voyage of the Demeter last year, which is the same director. He also did a film called Troll Hunter, which I'm a big fan of. I think this may have actually been his sophomore film right after Troll Hunter. But the guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to create a really cool, horror, creepy atmosphere. And for that reason, I'm a fan of this movie, just for the simple fact of the way it looks, the way it feels. And I thought the score was really, horror-centric, which I love. Brian Cox is freaking an all-timer. I thought Emile Hirsch did really well here, too. So, I mean, I really liked the movie. It just kind of lost me when we got to the fucking, cloth reading and Bible excerpts and shit at the end. I don't know, it just kind of lost me, and I felt like it was a little too rushed at the end of the movie. That's my big gripe with it. It's your turn.
You're never allowed to complain about the length of a movie ever again.
It's your turn.
Literally ever again.
Go ahead.
So
what do you got? I'm not complaining. I'm just giving you my opinion. I mean, you get mad at me when I give my opinion.
What did you expect to happen if
I didn't
if it
expect her to
didn't
be a
go?
witch from the Salem witchcraft trials. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't know.
So what did you expect then? I'm curious. Like, if it let
I
your
don't really know.
expectations down, what would have made the ending of this better in your opinion than,
Well, now that's
or just
a
like
whole.
not a Salem witch? Like, is that literally all you're telling me? Is just not a Salem
No,
witch?
I didn't dislike it, which I already said. It didn't, in my opinion, it didn't mesh with the vibe of the movie leading up to that. It didn't feel, I thought we were maybe going more sci-fi or like, I don't know. It just, and I'm talking about really when I watched it initially, because obviously I knew what happened when I watched it this time because I'd already seen it. But when I watched it initially and trying to recollect those memories of seeing it, I just remember thinking like, oh, okay, they're doing this. That's cool. And I mean, it didn't like blow me away. It wasn't like a reveal where I was like, oh my God, like, like some of the other things that happened throughout the movie with different jump scares and that kind of stuff. Like it just, I don't know. I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I don't know. You want me to have an opinion? It's my opinion. I know what you're saying.
I think that reveal either succeeding or either I think that reveal somehow affecting your viewing of the end of the film that's what strikes it as odd to me, because it was a non-reveal to me. Like it was just she could have very well been like a space alien or like literally anything else, and it probably would have gotten me to the same place, because the real genius of this film and the real reason why everything about this film works so much is that you already mentioned it, the way that Uberdahl creates that insanely tense, creepy, insanely good atmosphere. And you mentioned Cox, you mentioned Emil Hirsch, but like huge shout out to Olwen Kelly, the corpse on the table, for literally the entire movie, because I mean the way he uses the camera, just constantly shooting like this like gaping maw expression of like a missing tongue and like all this different stuff. It's so affecting and so creepy and so off-putting in terms of a film. This is like creating like that great horror atmosphere. I'm just mystified that the reveal that it was a Salem witch trial thing, or like that she was a witch, like it affected this for you at all, because it was just it blew right through for me. Like,
well,
they could have not explained what happened. Like they could have just left the explanation up to me, and it would have been just as effective, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't effective. I think that the movie really shined, and no pun intended, went above and beyond when it wasn't giving us information. Like, and I'm basically saying exactly what you're saying for the first 2/3 of the movie, because like those close-up shots of her eyes, her mouth, like it'll just be like that blank stare that she has with those creepy gray colored eyes, and he'll hold on that for 5-10 seconds, is very unsettling. And there was actually a couple times
is like it plays with expectation of the audience too, because you expect her to jump, you expect her to move at some point,
right?
You expect her like at some point, like they're examining in her mouth, or they're doing any other horror movie, like all of a sudden biting down on the finger, or like like reaching up and biting one of them, or like attacking them, or doing whatever else.
I even think of the sloth victim from Seven, when they're investigating his body and they find sloth, and then he wakes up, and it takes you kind of at a jolt by surprise. But then on a rewatch, you're like, why didn't I see that coming? But that's Fincher, and he's a master. But I think this is masterfully done too. Wow, you're talking about hot takes.
I saw Mank and
Fincher's
the Killer too.
Master,
all right,
okay.
Bud. I've seen Mank and the Killer too. All right, bud. Let's
don't make me sick
away.
Don't make me sick winners on you again. All right, he's waiting inside. I can go get him.
Zodiac still sucks, winners.
But I think I agree with you for the most part until we get to that last act, because my point was not necessarily the Salem witch stuff, because I'm a huge fan of that era and I study that era in history, and I think it's very interesting and tragic, really. It's a
Would
very
you have
tragic...
just preferred nothing then?
Well, let me just tell you what I'm saying, though, real quick, because I want to try to explain what I mean here. kind of like what you said, how you could insert anything, really. She could have been anything. And I think that's true. But the movie doesn't give us anything from a backstory perspective for the whole movie, really. And then all of a sudden, it starts getting thrown at us in the last like 10 minutes of the film. I love the very, very end of the film, like kind of the cliffhanger with the toe wiggling and how they find the crime scene there, just like the one at the beginning of the movie. So we kind of get the idea, like she's causing havoc wherever she goes, and all these people end up dead. And like I loved all that shit, but it was just that little 10-minute segment where we just get so much information and expository like explanation from Brian Cox's character, and like. Does this make sense what I'm saying? Like, it was a very ambiguous film until all of a sudden it's like,
because it had to
why
stop
all this shit happened
and fill in all the gaps that it thought the audience would want to know. Like, it had to spoon feed kind of like but this is like, because it's almost in the way that the film checks against that audience expectation of, you expect the corpse on the table to move, you expect the corpse on the table to like bite, attack, whatever, and it never does. The same way as in like, it kind of plays too much into that audience expectation of knowing that there'll be too many people that will want an answer, and stopping the film cold to like feed it to us, as you're alluding to. I think they plant a few seeds of it earlier, like the peat under the fingernails and the like the tattoos on the inside of the skin. They find the little cloth fabric thing or whatever with the weird symbols on it. Like, that's all like second act kind of stuff before all the really creepy stuff starts to happen, and then they're running around and all the sensory, all those different kind of things are going on. But yeah, I think that by and large, though, I really, really think this is so effective because it's just, I think it's in a way it's unapologetically what it is. I think it just creates this insanely beautiful atmosphere, which is to say insanely dreadful atmosphere. That is, it's like, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, it's a tough film to watch, and it's not overly gory. It's not I mean, it's got an autopsy of a corpse in it, like whatever, but it's not an overly gory film.
Right?
From a kills perspective, it's not like a Thanksgiving level bunch of nonsense where a woman gets cut in half like by a dumpster.
All right, calm down. Don't put nonsense and Thanksgiving in the same sentence. All right,
that was a glorious kill in a terrible movie. Yes, you're right.
But yeah, sure.
I think I just it's not over the top in terms of those like zanier horror elements that you might think of, like gore, splatter, whatever else. But I think the most effective horror, I think, really, really is about atmosphere. I think it's all about atmosphere, and that's one of the things. Like, it's great to connect another dot for this director who also did The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I really enjoyed as well. Again, that whole film was as successful as it was because that ship was a character unto itself in the film. And I don't think that film's successful unless that ship is as atmospheric and haunting and kind of dreadful as it is. Same thing with this film. I don't think that it's nearly as haunting and as arresting as it is without, I mean, a phenomenal corpse performance by Olwen Kelly. I mean, number one. And then number two, just every single shot being so intentional. That's why this film, like, I love films like this that are 86 minutes. It doesn't have to draw things out or anything like that. It's very deliberate in the shots that it goes for. It knows exactly what it wants to do. And it's so, if you've never seen this, and I'm sorry that you're this far into the movie, into our review of it, and we're ruining it for you if that's the case, but
yeah, check it out for sure.
It's so, and I don't know if that was your experience when you first watched it, but like, and I know you're the horror guy, but this was hard for me to watch. This was a tough watch for me, like, to get through. Like, you
mean like cringing because of the autopsy stuff, or
no? Like, it's that creepy and unsettling.
Yeah,
he's so successful in creating such a creepy, unsettling tone.
I agree
that it's difficult for, like, I'm not the horror person, so it's difficult for someone like me to sit there and just, and it's almost like playing on my expectations too much, where I'm just like, just let the thing happen so I can be okay. Just let the thing happen or whatever,
And there was a point too that I thought was wonderful because in the mortuary there, like he creates that feeling of claustrophobia, like you're trapped too,
Yep.
much like he does in the Demeter as well. But you know, there's a scene where early on where Emil Hirsch is going to leave with his girlfriend, who has a small role, and they're going to go see a movie together and go on date night or whatever. And you know, Brian Cox is like, "Yeah, you know, you guys go have fun. I'll take care of this Jane Doe or whatever." And right as he's about to literally leave that house, he says, "I can't leave my dad. Come back and get me in a few hours. I'm going to go down and help him." And that's when everything kind of spirals out of control. And but what was wonderful there is that when you kind of think back on that specific moment, he was almost out of there. You know, he was almost out of that kind of setting that was cursed in this movie because of Jane Doe.
Yeah.
But he didn't leave. And once he went back downstairs, he never left. He ended up dying there. Also, did you catch, I didn't catch this on the first watch actually, but that horrible rainstorm and the flooding and the hurricane and everything that kind of kept him there and the power went out and all that shit, that didn't happen. Did you catch that? The witch like orchestrated that. Because I didn't catch it on the first watch, but when I watched it today, there was like a news report of how it's another sunny day in the 70s, and like they had multiple strings of sunshine, and there hasn't been rain. The announcer mentions that there hasn't been rain in X number of days. So I'm like, what? So then I like started reading reviews and stuff, and I guess part of Jane Doe's thing is that she can control what you see, which is also why the father ends up killing the girlfriend with the axe, because he thought he saw one of the corpses.
Yeah, it definitely plays into a lot of.
Did you catch that though? Or no?
I didn't catch that at all. No, that's
crazy.
That's insane. Like that's just kind of goes to the levels of, well, like even with like even with the cops showing up at the end, like I guess he imagined that too. Like I guess a lot of it was just kind of illusionary, like where he imagined the cops were outside, like trying to let him in,
open the door,
and whatever, and like he's trying to open it, and it's still sealed shut and everything like that. I was kind of wondering if the witch would honor the you know, Brian Cox's character's sacrifice in terms of like, you know, I don't know, like what does that have, like he gives kind of his life energy to her or whatever, or something like that. I'm not 100% sure.
After seeing it a couple times, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to really dive into some breakdowns and stuff. But I think what I think, and then I kind of see what you think, because it happened with the family in the beginning of the movie, or whatever it was. But there was several dead bodies there. She was in the dirt beneath the house, and then we have the scene that we get here with the girlfriend, Emil Hirsch, Brian Cox, another 3 bodies. So Brian Cox's soul essentially was sacrificed for her to kind of regenerate. But I think what the way I understand it is that she was thought to be a witch in Salem in the 17th century, and she wasn't a witch. But instead of
no one was.
Right, instead of burning her at the stake or whatever they did to suspected witches, they tortured her and performed experiments on her and raped her and all this other stuff, horrible stuff.
Yeah.
That ended up turning her into a witch.
Yeah.
Who now for eternity is immortal basically. But she has to be dead. So she can experience everything in her brain and mentally, but she can't physically experience anything. And then, so in other words, every soul that she takes, like she did Brian Cox's, makes her a little more alive. So that's why her toe wiggles at the end, because she's that much closer. She just needs a couple more souls before she can wake up. You know what I mean? That's kind of what on my second viewing, I really started kind of thinking about, like, what, because that's another reason why, and I mean, you know, 7's not a horrible score, obviously, but that's another reason why it gets a knock for me, because it's a bit of a brain teaser. Like the first time I saw it, I was just kind of like confused as to how it all tied in. But you do gain a respect for a movie like this the more times that you see it, I would imagine. I mean, I've only seen it twice, but I definitely walked away from it today, having seen it again, with a little more appreciation for it.
It masterclass in creating a tense horror atmosphere. I mean, you know what? I really think I really think that this film could have been even better. Remove Emil Hirsch's character from it altogether. Just have it be one person. And I think that's why you put a second character in that position, because maybe that, like, I had trouble watching this movie with two people in that room. Imagine if it's only one person.
Yeah, then you feel their anxiety.
I think it would be even worse. I think maybe they added the second character to this because it would have been this would have been that movie where I know they, like, every once in a while, like, a horror movie will come out. It's like, oh, audience members were throwing up in the aisles because it's so scary, which literally never happens ever. If somebody had the flu at the screening and just happened to get sick,
what about those stories of women giving birth during The Exorcist? Going into labor. That's not real either.
They shouldn't have gone to the movies when they were 9 months pregnant, probably.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you, Nick, that it is a tense, atmospheric, at times hard to watch. I agree with you. And I'm thinking on your single person plot device.
It'd be too scary.
That would be terrifying.
It'd be too scary.
If you're by yourself in that setting. Let's talk about the performances. Brian Cox, what do you think, man? Just stoic, stellar.
He's so good. Like, he immediately gives that vibe of the master, like, who knows it all, who's seen it all, who's done it all, and like somebody who really cares about his craft and his profession. Really, really love that performance. I really, really loved Emil Hirsch's Austin, kind of bringing in the more emotional side of it, like not just wanting to determine the cause of death, but also kind of wanting to try to investigate, like get a little bit into that kind of investigative sort of thing. I think one thing you could possibly knock the film for as well would be like, why, I mean, I get like all the supernatural stuff's happening and all this weird stuff, but like, I don't know, like I thought maybe Brian Cox's character could have clung to his beliefs a little bit longer, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to where he was
skepticism, you mean?
The skepticism, yeah, the skepticism of like he's very clinical. He's very clinical. He only cares about determining the cause of death. You know, like the rest of it, the emotion of it, the crime of it or whatever doesn't matter necessarily. But I mean, the film's got to film. Like, it's got to get to some point eventually, and we can't have like an endless conflict between those characters in that sense would have probably also felt a little forced. So I'm not knocking the film for it one way or the other, I guess, necessarily, but I don't know.
Do you think the mother killed herself? I don't think they ever say specifically. They kind of allude to her sadness and how he couldn't do anything to help her. But I don't know. I mean, it could have been cancer. It could have been, I don't know. It could have been anything. I got the impression on this second watch that maybe she killed herself.
I didn't read anything into that, to be 100% honest. I was probably far more concerned about the pale, corpse on the table that I was very certain was going to spring to life at any point. I think also, honestly, I think this is a much easier film to rewatch knowing that the corpse doesn't move.
Yeah.
Because then it allows you to focus on all the other details going, like, you caught all this other stuff on a second watch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to bet you this is a second watch kind of film where once because I'm literally like sitting here crapping my pants.
She's going to buy
waiting for this thing to come alive. I'm like, and part of me is just like, just bring this thing to life already. I need that corpse to do something so that we can move on with the movie. I think once like rewatching this movie, I think it's probably as rewarding because then the corpse isn't moving and you're looking at everything else that's going on in the frame.
Right. Another reason this lost at least a point for me is the cat. How the fuck are you going to do that to my boy Stanley, the cat? You know what? I'm not this review.
I'm bumping my score up to 10.
Put your glasses back on.
I'm bumping my score up to 10 despite
Stay into character at all times on this show, goddammit.
That's right. Glasses, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it was a touching moment, though, with Brian Cox and the cat. And he said it was the last thing he had of his wife's left. And I thought that was a touching moment there. But in all seriousness, like, this was not a movie that was really concerned a whole lot about like emotional character connection, because even with the father-son, like, you obviously could tell that Brian Cox wanted the best for his kid and he loved him and all that kind of stuff. And the kid was obviously doing this line of work in an effort to somewhat, please his dad and impress him. So
Well,
you
he was
kind of
what,
got
like
those
third
general
generation, I think, right?
right. Yeah, they mentioned that too. So
Here's a question for you.
yeah,
Ditch Emma's character from the film entirely. Because I will posit to you,
who did you?
the girlfriend, Emma.
Oh,
I will posit to you the girlfriend is only in the film for the scene in which she dies. Because it's the only other character that they establish besides the sheriff. It's the only other character that they establish in the film.
The only thing I would say is I'm going to go back to what I said before because I think it was super, super impactful when you're reflecting on the movie after you've seen it that he was not going to be there initially because he was leaving with her for date night. So I think having her character there to reflect on, man, he was that close to getting out of the hell that he had to live through. I think that's somewhat important too, only as a reflectory piece to think about, not necessarily in the moment. It doesn't really matter. I mean, they could have written anything in there. He went to the bathroom and then came back and the Jane Doe was there and they did, you know what I mean? Like it didn't have to be in there, but I just think it's an interesting piece. And also because, yes, you're right. She gets killed later with the figment of the imagination and the whole thing. But in that initial scene, he told her to come back. So then he has that guilt. I told her to come back because I told her to come back. Now she's dead. That whole thing. But there's no kills in this movie really, aside from the two of them at the end, which is interesting for a horror movie too. Did I answer your question? You're looking at me.
I don't know.
I can't tell if you're admiring me or if you're like, this guy's a fucking idiot. What's happening?
I think that kind of going off of what you said, that it's not really, there's not a ton of emotional depth to these characters or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to swing one way or the other, either further emotionally develop and invest us in them, or just eschew it entirely. Like we don't need it. And I really think that character feels extraordinarily ancillary, knowing that, I mean, really the only reason they establish the relationship between Emma and Austin is so that she can come back halfway in the movie and get an axe in her face.
That's true. And but she did that was a really cool scene with the dad and her with the bell on the ankle. Which, by the way, talk about plot device and sound design and the fucking jingling of that bell.
Yeah. Super creepy.
When they were in the office.
Super creepy.
And I didn't, on the first watch, they're explaining why the bell's there and like whatever. And I'm not thinking to myself, oh, this is going to come back up later. And it did. And it was like, I remember on the first time I saw that, I was like, is that the fucking bell from the guy's ankle? What was your, we're getting ready to wrap up, but was there a horror scene in this movie that you would take away as like, that was your favorite scene of the film?
Just the atmosphere. I mean, the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's true. It is
atmosphere is what creates great horror, in my opinion. It's not. I mean, the slashy, like the Thanksgiving, like dumpster cut in half, like super gory blood splatterfest kills are fun to me, but they do not a good movie make. Good movie to me, like a good horror atmosphere,
it doesn't need it.
You can really, really set the tension with the camera. I mean, really, really just making you as an audience member feel ill at ease just by what's happening on the screen, or maybe even the lack of what's happening on the screen, which is a lot of the case in this film, I think. I think it's that atmosphere, it's that tension. That's what you have to take away from this. You could swap in other actors in these roles. You could do a lot of other different things. I think largely, a lot of the pieces aside, this is still going to be the same movie because of the way it's shot, because of how atmospheric it is. And I mean, the way that he uses the lighting to his effect, like the lighting going out or the lighting flickering, things like that, like the lighting, like the generator lights not being able to cast enough light. So it's very dark looking down the hallway and you can only see like a shadow of something. The sound design of the bell and, things like that, just like random thuds and random noises in other
those
rooms.
Fluorescent like bulb, like humming and stuff like that.
All that stuff is that's what makes really, really, truly great horror, in my opinion, is really setting that amazing atmosphere. So that's why I mean, honestly, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. and I really
It's
enjoyed it
definitely-
more than I do a lot of horror movies.
Yeah,
I'm
no, I can
glasses
see
guy
that.
after all.
I mean, you're our glasses guy. What are you going to do? I mean, it is atmospheric. I agree with you. And my favorite horror scene, aside from the bell scene with the feet appearing in front of the crack in the doorway at the bottom, and they hear the bell coming, that's probably it for me in terms of like just tension building. But I also loved in the early stages of kind of shit hitting the fan, Emil Hirsch is in the hallway and he sees a person in the reflection
In the mirror,
like
yeah. That's a good scene too.
And he's like, "What the fuck is that?" And then the lights are flickering, like you said, and he turns the corner and there's nobody there.
Mhm.
The person in the mirror is not there anymore. Like that kind of shit, because your mind plays tricks on you in different situations, and you put yourself in that situation. Like if you're this is a mortuary, obviously, but if you're in like a creepy hotel or like you think you see something out of the corner of your eye, and that kind of shit fucks with me. So I thought it was done really well, really believable, realistic. Yeah. So that would probably be my two favorites to take away from this. And wrapping up, I mean, I didn't like in the last act how they just kind of threw all the information on the wall. Salem witch trials, this, that. It was a lot to take in on my first viewing, and I just kind of didn't get it. Like I didn't really get it all. On the second watch, it made a lot more sense. I kind of started tying stuff together a little bit, and I told Nick about a couple things I noticed this time that I didn't notice the first time that are really cool. This is the kind of movie I feel like if you rewatch it every few years or whatever, you introduce it to friends of yours that have never seen it, you're probably going to take something away from it each time. It seems like that kind of movie that has those nice little Easter eggs kind of built into it to build a nice little puzzle based on your watches of it. So it's a great flick if you are a fan of horror or even like thrillers. Like I mentioned Seven earlier, this borrows a lot from that type of film, in my opinion. Like, there's an autopsy scene in Seven. There's obviously the crime scenes are kind of shot similarly. So those types of like crime thriller movies. And if you're a horror fan, like it kind of speaks to different demographics of people that enjoy different types of films. Kind of like what Nick said, it does get kind of hard to watch at times. And I mean, there's this dead body on the table being, having an autopsy performed on her the whole movie pretty much. So there's organs being thrown out and, stuff being put into blood vestibules and everything else. So you have to be ready to see all that stuff. But if you're into it, I say give it a go. Autopsy of Jane Doe, 7 for me. Any final thoughts from you, buddy, before we wrap up?
It's great. Watch it. 8 out of 10. I don't think I think like I said, the reveal at the Salem witch thing at the ending, it could have been anything, and it would have been the same ride for me. I don't think honestly you need it. I think they could have eschewed it entirely, but nevertheless, I mean the atmosphere in this film alone is worth the price of admission.
Did you like the toe wiggling at the end? Not
We
like
ain't-
in a
we-
Taran-
we ain't
not
got
like
no-
in a Tarantino way, but like in a Nick way.
We haven't had like a sequel to it or anything like that. I wonder if there's
No.
ever like plans to do any kind of sequel or anything like this. Here's
lot
the
of
thing:
people
that
are
you
saying,
can't make
origin
this movie
story.
again. You got to give her more powers and like have her be up and walking around and stuff like that.
Well, a lot of people were saying maybe an origin story. So I guess that would be her in Salem, maybe. I don't know. But that might be a
Maybe.
hard watch, too. It should be tortured the whole time. I don't know. But yeah. All right, there you go. Autopsy of Jane Doe. It was the review this week, the Retro Roulette Review. Guys, I'll throw a little link down below here for you if you're watching on video, and it'll also be in the show notes if you're listening on audio. But if you want to join us over on Patreon for as little as $1, you can throw a movie into the hat just like this one, and we will draw movies out of the hat and we'll review them on the main show. We do the damn thing here, Nick. We just talk about it on the regular week. Who cares? Brett is the man, and he's a patron who threw out Autopsy of Jane Doe. Brett, thank you so much for the suggestion. I was glad
seriously.
to revisit it, and obviously Nick enjoyed it too, so that's
Thank
great.
you, everybody who picks good movies. Not Brad, not Postocalypse.
Not Brad Hargis. Thank you, everyone, but Brad Hargis. All right, Nick, what are we doing next week, man? So, by the way, let's just give so it was a 7 from me and an 8 from you. So
Yep.
it's a 7.5 from the P's cumulatively on the Autopsy of
Get in
Jane
there.
Doe from 2016. So go check it out. It's on Hulu. It's on Shudder. Give it a go. Nick, next week we're going to be looking at Matthew Vaughn's Argyle. Have you seen the trailer for this thing? Speaking of cats,
I've seen the trailer for this movie literally 1,000 times.
I was
I'm
going to say,
so
it's played before
tired
every
of seeing
movie.
the trailer for this movie, to be 100% honest.
You can't be because Dua Lipa's in it, so you're good.
I
You
mean,
can't get tired of seeing that.
Henry Cavill and John Cena are in it. That's for me. That's
Henry Cavill in a fucking box cut. He looks like what's the guy from Fox Sports? What's the guy that's on the Fox Sports? with
Howie
Terry
Long?
Bradshaw?
Is that who you?
Yeah, he
is
looks
that who
like
you're
Howie
referring
Long
to?
in this movie. Yeah, he looks like Howie Long. No,
So that's a weird pull, my guy, but okay. All right, sure.
I don't know. I had a couple beers, so go see Howie Long in Argyle next week, and then we'll get together and talk about it. Nick, until then, I will be performing an autopsy on you. I want to find out what the cause of your awesomeness is. I'm going to look into it.
You're gonna have to dig deep, buddy.
I'm going to look into it.
I was hung or burned at the stake for believing the Earth was round back in Copernicus times or something like that.
I'm sure you were.
Or in 2024, but one of the two.
Hey, I would watch that movie though. I'd watch that movie. All right, guys, look for the Argyle review next week and all kinds of other stuff on the YouTube channel and everything getting ready for the Golden Peas, which are coming up. They'll be on February 19th with our boy Brian Loysauce. Make sure you check the show notes to vote in the Golden Peas as voting ends this week as we're recording. Nick, I love you, man. I'll see you next week. We'll talk about Argyle and more cats.
Let your sun shine.
More cats in cinema. I love it.